Welcome to Season 6 of the Long-Winded One podcast. This is Spoiler Sessions, LitRPG, the only show where spoilers don't spoil anything. We're digging into fan theories, side characters, and the lore authors left in the drawer.
All right. Yeah. Check your drawers. Make sure that lore hasn't escaped everyone. Everybody cracks up, but the authors always kind of smirk when I get to spoilers that don't spoil anything. Yeah. But anyway, welcome everybody. So this is season 6 of Spoiler Sessions. Not every season is a spoiler session, but this one is. And so we're focused on LitRPG and the authors and narrators who make the wonderful material that we love to consume. We're on episode 26 now, and with me tonight I have John Stovall. He's written a bunch, but you might know him as like a Dungeon Core author. He did like the superhero dungeons, which was what was that, Villain Core and Ascension Core, John?
Yep.
You did the Dungeon of Stories. You have the standalone Dryad dungeon, right? And then you have the 2 series that we're going to talk about tonight. Well, you have the Demon Card Enforcer series, right? And then you have kind of the sequel series, which is upcoming, I believe, the Card Apocalypse.
Yes.
Is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah. It's out like 3/4 of the first book on Railroad, but yeah, basically upcoming.
Nice. And we have Keith in the chat here with us, joining us. I knew Keith would be here. And with me tonight, my co-host is Jason Downs from DownstoRead. What's up, Jason?
Hello. Good. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. It's all about community here, boys. And so we have a few questions we're just gonna talk about. You guys have been on plenty of podcasts, I'm sure, and 30 minutes goes by in a snap. And so we're just gonna go down the list. I'll do question number 1. We are really focused this season on stuff that happens in the books, right? Things that your fans are interested in, things that fans might have questions about. And we might do little baby spoilers. I don't know. I can't give you spoilers on the spoilers. But the other thing I should say before we get going is I always do a countdown to Lit RPG Con. We are about 8 weeks out to Lit RPG Con, and I'm very, very excited. I just feel like there's still so much to do. And I know, John, you're coming, right? You and Shami are coming?
Yeah, we'll both be there.
Nice. And you're bringing the whole family from the sounds of things.
Nearly everybody that's left. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. And Jason, are you able to join us this year? I know you have a new baby.
Yeah, I'm going to go next year. I got a 2-week-old, so we're a little bit too much travel for that early on.
I understand. I have 3 children, and I'm only allowed to go to 1 con a year. That's not actually true. I put that on myself, but I try not to leave too much. So guys, we're going to talk about, we're going to primarily, like I said, focus on the Demon Card Enforcer series, if that's cool for everyone. And John, I'm just going to ask the first question, and it might actually, I normally ask people to give like a 10,000 foot view of the series before I ask the question, but I'm wondering if maybe that description of the series can be tied into the answer to question number 1. Maybe. Let's see how it goes. What do you say?
Probably. So the thing that excites people most about the series is it is a card series, and it's much more of a true card game style series. Think Goblin Summoner, if you're fairly deep in the community. That came out a while ago, and less like all the skills type of system. And the Lost in the Lonely series introduces 2 new card concepts to the world, not to the reader, because this is the first one you've been reading, but to the world, which is the 3 technically. The companion cards, which are cards that can stay out and talk and have a personality, so they're not just a mindless monster. Orphan cards, where if you keep them alive and when they're weak for a certain amount of time, they become more interesting and powerful or do something. And set cards, where if you have X, Y, and Z card on the field, it does certain things, or if you collect all of a certain number of cards, you get a special bonus, which is the situation the main character is in over the course of the novel.
And did you both grow up playing like the huge card games like Pokemon and all that stuff?
Pretty much. I'm a bit older. I mean, I was already, like 18, I think, maybe 16 when Magic the Gathering came out, and I didn't really get into it until I was about 19 or 20. So growing up, I mean, I'm a big kid, but, technically grown, I think, before I got into all that stuff. I also did the Star Wars card game for a while, although that was not it was cool. I love Star Wars, but it was not the best card game. But I get back, and it's going to sound weird, but I get out of Magic and then I get back into it like every 5 to 7 years on a cycle. Like I go through 1 or 2 years where I'm deep into it, and then I just kind of leave, and then I come back over and over and over again. I'm not quite sure what it is, but some part of my brain just keeps trying to do it.
Yeah. Jason, what about you? Did you play?
Yeah, I'm 34, so I'm like in like the golden age of the Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh when I was a kid. Never got into Magic, just because that's a little, I think, like it was a little too complex for me at that age. But like even when you're saying like mythic sets, I'm just thinking of like Yu-Gi-Oh cards and all that type of stuff come right in the head. Yeah. But I was right in that sweet spot.
See, I think I missed it. I was, I was in like I played like the original Dungeons and Dragons, like the Oriental Adventures and Dark Sun and all of those. And I think by the time I went to probably into high school or college, the card games were starting to get popular, and I was my time playing role playing games was waning until I obviously moved to Boston and then started playing again. So I missed that. I missed the card kind of phase, and I know it's still going on, and I know people are into it, but I think I missed that critical period for myself. But let me ask the first question here. So let's talk about the new cards for Demon Card Enforcer. Does that include like? I mean, you can talk about it, but does that what we're talking about? Does it include the Cycle of the Lost and the Lonely?
So it's pretty much all Cycle of Lost and the Lonely. I tried to do card releases in every 10 years. There's a set release, but they come in cycles anywhere from 1 to 8, where the mechanics are similar in each of the sets. In my brain, I have Cycle of Lost and Lonely. I thought it was going to be a 30-year cycle, but I'm not going to be telling any of the stories for 30 years. So it's just kind of why not lore type of stuff. The only cards that I really know will be coming out in book 4, like truly new to the series, is the upgraded Cerebu card, which is the signature card that's been with them since the absolute beginning, and the Demon Well card. But he only gets to keep one, and I honestly have not decided which one yet. The last time I got stuck on whether I wanted to do something way A or way B, I actually threw it out to my Patreons and let them vote on it. And I honestly can't decide which of the 2 cards I want him to get, but the game plays with a power mechanic, and it's like mana basically, but it doesn't come from lands. You have a character sheet, and you actually level up in a more traditional LitRPG sense, and you get the ability to have more cards on the field, more cards in your hand at a time each time you cycle, more power to play cards with, etc. 2 power represents somebody that's about as good as a creature that you summon that's about as good as a like basic trained soldier, and a 10 power is the largest cards, and that would represent like a baby kaiju type of thing. Is about as strong as it gets. And Cerebu started as a 2 power, but very rare and high tier card. So, like equivalent to probably dropping a SWAT guy with reasonable gear down in terms of combat capability. And he's going to be moving to a 5 power. So people will see a much, much stronger, like he'll be a lot more like Cerberus and a lot less Cerberus. Sorry. And a lot less like,
I knew what you meant.
Yeah. Like the puppy that he is now. Or I got really excited by this concept of like side decks where you have creatures off to the side that you can pull in under certain circumstances. And so the Demon Well allows him to summon cards from his side deck at an extremely high rate. And so I got really excited about that mechanic. I feel like I might be betraying my reader base if I don't upgrade Cereboo after 3 books, but I kind of want to put this other card in because it's cool. So I'm like torn, but I can't give them both because having to pick was like the whole point of the last stuff, last book. So
let me just fill in some in case people are listening and they haven't read yet, because that could happen. I mean, people tend to come to spoiler sessions because they know the content, right?
Yeah.
And they need to know more. But in case people are stumbling across this, and if you're in chat, feel free to ask questions. But the main character is Ethan Wolfe for this series. So when we're referring to him, that's who we're talking about. And Cerberus is well, we're going to talk about Cerberus in a little bit. That's one of the questions. We're going to talk about the gods from this series in just a bit. So stay tuned on that. Keith in the chat says, "We do love the pup." Yes, they love.
Yeah.
So Jason, you want to take the next question?
Yeah. So what is the metaverse, and like what does it have to do with like the meta magic in your series?
So it has nothing to do with the meta magic. The reason there's a metaverse, there's a couple reasons for it. So technically, Card Apocalypse is not set in the same universe.
Okay.
And it pulls creatures from other universes that are sentient into basically like a giant battle world, I guess, for want of a better description. It's much, much larger than Earth, and it pulls... It basically is God stitching multiple worlds together so that you can encounter things like goblins and elves, but they all play the card game system. But it's also because technically I think there's going to be a minimum of 4 series in this world at this point. So Demon Card Enforcer is 3 books long and will eventually be 4 books long. It's gonna be done at 4. I originally played with 6, but just being 100% honest, I don't think the money is there for 6 books. The first 2 have been pretty damn profitable. The third one, so I think a 4th one will be worth my time. I seriously doubt a 5th or a 6th will. So just being 100% honest, probably going to stop it at 4. Card Apocalypse is a minimum of 3 books, and then depends on how it does. If it goes further, Atheon picked it up, so it'll be going through them. So those are the 2 that I'm writing. I technically have also written part of a 3rd series because I'm a lunatic, and even though I haven't finished what I'm doing, but I think authors know how that goes. And then on top of that, Casey Azell, who is mildly famous. She's a 2-time Dragon Award nominee, certainly more famous than I am. Science fiction author that works with Baen Books. Read my series and got excited enough that she wrote Shadow Card Guardian in the series, and that's going to end up with 2 books. She's most of the way done with the 2nd book, but she's really busy. She got Baen just basically gave her this huge contract and told her she had to start working pretty much immediately to get stuff out. So she's taking care of that. And then there's a guy, Keith, who is
he's in the chat. Yep.
Okay, yeah. And he's pretty much written a book. The impression I get is that it's like a very, very rough draft right now, but it's a done book. So, at some point that's going to be published, I strongly suspect. I mean, that's ultimately, we'll figure that out, but I'm pretty sure that's what that's going to be. And on top of that, there's a 5th guy that's been bouncing around that's talking about publishing a book as well. Now, I get the impression he hasn't written much at this point, and so we'll see what happens, because people that say they'll write a book versus people that do write a book, very high ratio. But so I guess I'm also somewhat thinking of it from like a multiverse from that standpoint. And I think, I'm not sure if it's happened yet, but I remember from talking to Keith that he's going to have, there's a capacity to pull other characters in and fight them in like an almost ephemeral form. But the implication is that they're in another dimension. So I'm not sure if he's writing in literally Wolf's universe or if he's writing in like an alternative version of that at this point. I mean, either way, it's fine. But so there's a minimum of 2 worlds and 4 series at this point, basically. And it might be 3 worlds, maybe 4, and it could be as high as 7 series that are going to be written in this, in the greater, I just call it the card universe at this point. That started with Demon Card Enforcer. So the multiverse has nothing to do with, or the metaverse has nothing to do with meta magic. It's just the greater. This magic system exists on multiple worlds, and the reason is because technically the gods are fighting each other through proxies over multiple worlds, and that's why it's not purely disconnected. It's almost entirely disconnected, but it feeds into the same god combat system.
Keith is in the chat, and he would like to comment on what you just said. He says, "My series is the same as Wolf, but starts in New Omaha."
Oh, okay.
And how cool is it when people start writing in your world? I mean, that's
super
really
cool. Like very, very cool, legitimately, especially, and I apologize, Keith, but to have Casey be the first person to jump in and do it, and she's already like significantly more famous author than me. Of course, that's a huge ego boost if that makes sense. I mean, I really appreciate Keith doing it too, but Casey is a Bane traditionally published author that got nominated for 2 separate Dragon Awards. So I'm like, man, if she likes my book, I can't be doing it all wrong.
Do you ever get nervous when people write in your universe a little bit? Like, are they gonna do something maybe you might not like or something like that?
Not really. I tell everybody the same thing. You're going to write the book and you're going to send it to me, and I'm going to suggest changes. Some of them will be suggestions. Some will be effectively orders. But if you don't want the orders, you don't have to have them. You're just not canon. If you want to be a canon part of the universe, you have to conform to my world. And if you don't want to, I don't mind if you write non-canon material in my world. That's, I don't really care. Maybe I should take it more seriously, but Shammy's the big, super successful author. I was an attorney for 13 years. I got her, I took care of her for 6 years while she was establishing her career. I'm almost a kept man at this point. It's not really that important to me to try to suck every penny out of my fellow authors that I need to. So the only rule is if you're going to write in my world, if you want it to be canon, you have to listen to what I say. And if you don't want it to be canon, you do whatever you want.
Is there a Bible? Like, do you have like a Bible? That's what a lot of publishers call them, right? Like rules.
Yeah. Story Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do. It's only rules, and it's not 100% complete at this point, but you can get it technically by going to my Discord. It was set up like a year or two ago. I'm not really sure how to download it, but there's like a sub thread. One of the guys just volunteered to run my Discord for me, and somebody else, Scion runs the Discord. Seraphian made a bunch of rule systems. They got it together. I gave Seraphian all my official documents, and he posted them all so that everybody has access to it. It's out of date technically, not as much as a year, but stuff I've introduced in Card Apocalypse 2, nobody has seen, like nobody has seen. And in this weird possible third story I'm writing, nobody has seen some stuff. So it's technically out of date now. I don't think it includes Keith's stuff. Keith sent me all of his stuff, and we went back and forth on it for a little bit, not much. And so all of that is now canon, and I don't think that's been included. And I'm not sure how much of Shadow Card Guardian made it in as canon, but all of her stuff basically followed. I know for sure. So in terms of actual rules, it doesn't really introduce anything new, whereas Keith technically has a new system, the Fusion system. So,
well, you mentioned Card Apocalypse. So my next question is about Card Apocalypse. Tell us about the upcoming sequel series, Card Apocalypse, and how it fits, right? And I have a secondary question, which is, are you actually able to talk about how it fits in without giving away the ending for Demon Card Enforcer?
Yes. Technically, it doesn't fit in. They're technically different universes. So the Card Apocalypse is an Earth that didn't have magic, and they go over and get magic. Earth itself goes over, but it's transplanted in pieces. So you'll have it's set in Kansas, so you have like a piece of the Flint Hills right next to like a swamp river full of snake beasts that exist on a different universe where there's a small goblin village that has to be saved. That's the actual first half of Card Apocalypse 1. Where it technically fits, and I did this a little bit in DCE, but Shadow Card Guardian, I guess, is where this got really expanded the most, is the concept of the gods fighting each other for prestige and for power. So technically these are different, universes, but it's the same gods having contests, and their power wanes and waxes based on who they back, who wins, who accomplishes what, that sort of thing. And it's by agreement, so they wouldn't fight each other and destroy, worlds and all that. They created a system to shift power amongst them based on proxy wars, basically.
And how did you come up with this sequel series?
I don't ever come up with the story first. That's probably my biggest flaw as an author, is I come up with like really cool concepts for cards and game systems, and then I make a story. So I got really excited about an apocalypse themed card set, and so then I wrote an apocalypse novel. I'll say really quick. I know we're kind of running out of time. I'll say really quick, but DCE only exists because Ryan Tang, another LitRPG author, is part of my wife's writers group, and he knew I was really good at systems. He asked me to make him a card system. He has a book that's almost finished that's based on the prototype for DCE's card system, but then he put it away. And by the time we had done all that, I'd gotten so excited about the card system I made for him that I borrowed one of my wife's stories basically and wrote it. Now I had to rewrite it. I had to rip 40,000 words out and rewrite it completely because it wasn't that well received on Railroad the first time around. And the second time was very successful. So, it was a good rewrite. But I made a system for that one. I made a system for Card Apocalypse and then made the book. And I got really excited about this thing I was thinking about while I was trying to sleep for cards on this maybe third system I'm going to write, or book. We'll see. So I don't think I'm as good an author as I could be because I come up with the system first and the story gets tacked on later.
Any way you do it, man. Any way you do it.
Yeah, I think that happens sometimes. We get excited about a vignette or a system or a mechanic, and that's what prompts the world. And you mentioned Ryan Tang. He's going to be on the show next weekend, next Sunday. Okay, cool. Yeah,
he's a considerably more successful author than I am. So again, this is almost like the Casey Azell thing, where it's a privilege that he comes to me when he wants like game systems and stuff like that. I feel like it's a talent I possess, and so I kind of appreciate that, I guess.
Yeah, well, not everybody could write what you write. I don't think. I think that goes across the board. But still, well, let's do one more question. Jason, do you have another question for him?
Yeah. So tell us about like the gods in Demon Card Enforcer. Like, can you tell us more about like the Infernal Lords and like Cerberus and things like that?
So originally, I wanted to have the 7 deadly sins, basically. So each of the Infernal Lords represents one of the 7 deadly sins, but I only picked 5 of them, and then had him be the 6th card as Cerberus. And Cerberus is he's basically the personification of an anti-hero. He's the evil that hunts other evil. Okay, in my universe, and the reason is my character. And the reason I have Wolf and who he is he's the flawed character that made lots of terrible decisions at one point in his life for good reasons, but still bad decisions. And now he's, in some real sense, redeeming himself, both by hunting others that are hurting people and by helping people directly. So Cerberus felt like the fit for him. He's the one that keeps the darkness, down in the hells where it belongs type of thing.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah. And so I assigned each of the Infernal Lords, the person that runs the prostitution crime got, I think it was Asmodeus that ended up being the one of lust and stuff like that. So he goes after, there's the one for violence that runs the hitmen and crime, violent crimes and stuff. And the one of gluttony, I think, was drugs, the drug runner. There's all that kind of stuff. So the seven deadly sins, 5 of them get infernal personifications, but technically the cards also have like divine people reference. The only one that really gets dealt with is Raphael, who in this one is the Archangel of Kindness. Nobody else really gets directly dealt with, but the idea is there's 30 or 40 gods that are infernal, 30 or 40 that are divine, but there's technically like 300 or 400 other gods, gods of nature, gods of civilization, gods representing the elemental forces or terrain or weather, stuff like that. So there's lots and lots of gods. I guess they have a whole society of gods. But I sort of did that more thematically for the cards and less for the gods. And it was really all the stuff Casey did with Nyx. And she made some really interesting stuff around Nyx, the mother of night, who was also the mother of a whole bunch of demigods. Mm-hmm. And she got a lot of really cool ideas about all that. And so that's part of what fed into Card Apocalypse, was when she was talking about all this and I was thinking about some of the god stuff and the god wars and making it like they fight in more than one place type of thing. But yeah, for DCE, you're really only going to be dealing with Cerberus and 5 demons that represent one of the 7 deadly sins.
Well, I want to know, I just want to know, because as you were talking about this is what I was doing. Are you picturing Asmodeus and all the other demons and devils as they appeared in like the first monster manual? Because that's every time you say Asmodeus, that's the picture that I think about.
Dude, it was hard to get past that. I started jamming at 10. I found on my dad's shelf the stuff you were talking about, like the original. It's not technically the original. I don't think it was the boxed one, but the D&D first edition stuff. And so, yeah, I have that in my head, but apparently that's all wrong. I'm assuming they did it just because they didn't want to exactly copy, devil stuff. They just wanted it as a vague concept. But my interpretation of who's in charge and who's doing what is completely wrong, apparently. So I had to sort of go back and do a lot of weird researching stuff because, yes, I had that image exactly in my head, and then it was apparently canonically they had changed it all around.
Well, so I think as authors we can kind of do, like, if we borrow a god from mythology, like certainly in DCC, like I'm doing the new book right now, and like I think in the book before, the Dagda was in it, which is I only know because I write Celtic novels, and I'm like, that's not the Dagda, but like I think, you can kind of do whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the brilliance of our genre, I think.
I mean, it's the beauty of adaptation. You can just take it and just play with it, and you just have all that background to mess around with.
Yeah. Well, ironically, the 5 ones that are associated, one of them is not technically a demon. It's like a Mesopotamian god, but the other 4 are pretty, semi-accurate representations to the theoretical Christian counterparts. But the angel is just basically made up whole cloth. I changed the angel around completely. So yes, definitely did some pretty significant adaptation there.
Well, guys, I feel like we could be on here for another couple of hours talking about this stuff, but I want to keep us as close as I can to the 30-minute time frame. So always my last question is, what do you guys have going on, both of you? And we'll start with Jason and where we can find you.
I'm on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, DownstoRead, book reviews, book recs. I'm writing a book right now, but I've rewritten the first chapter like 50 times, and I just get past the first. So I'll have title things coming up probably about 6 to 8 months.
That's awesome.
So my latest work is actually with Shammy. It's called a superhero called Doberman. It's coming out 2 or 3 weeks before LitRPG Con. She tried to release it like the week before, and I was like, what are you doing? Nobody is going to be reading books at LitRPG Con. They're going to be picking up all their favorite authors' stuff, So we're releasing it then. Really excited for that one. It's the first time I felt competent enough to write with her because she's normally a substantially better writer than I am, and I felt like I'd reached at least the point where I would not embarrass her. I mean, obviously she went through and did a lot of rewriting herself and whatever, but and I could basically be found pretty much through Amazon. You can technically order me physically, but I'm pretty much an Amazon exclusive person. Although I think because it's through Shammy, Superhero Called Dublin will be able to be found anywhere books are sold type of thing because she's a much wider.
I've seen her advertising it all over the socials.
Yeah,
and that
is so cool.
Yeah,
it is.
Dude, she got one of the artists that did actual poster art for some of the Marvel superhero movies for Disney to do our cover. So I'm like, I don't know, like it's just like a tiny little nerd thing, but I'm nerding out about it. I'm trying. See, now I feel stupid because I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a super famous artist, and apparently they met at like one of these cons, and he just had like a random break, like one of his people backed out of a project or something, and he just ended up with like a free week. And so she was like, "Hey, I got some money." And he was like, "I got 1 week, so if you give me a project I can get done in 1 week, I'll do it for you." And so we got it. It was super sweet. So
that's awesome. Well, I think we talked about the whole like when we release thing and LitRPG Con coming up, and I just gotta say, if you're writing a book or if you're planning a release of a book, for me, LitRPG Con is what I use to kind of keep me, like honest, I guess, right? Like if I want to do something, I tell everyone in the world that I'm going to do it, and then I have to do it, right? And I try to like judge what I'm releasing from LitRPG Con to LitRPG Con. So I get excited, and I know the fans get excited about all the new stuff you guys have coming out. John and Shammy both. Say hello to Shammy for me.
Will do.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, that's all for tonight. Thanks for being here with me, and definitely check out John's stuff and check out Jason's stuff online. Where can we find you primarily, Jason? All over the socials?
TikTok, Instagram. It's just LitRPG recommendations right now. I'm trying to highlight just so many books. There's so many hidden gems in the genre.
100%. Yeah. Well, you guys are the best. Thank you, and thanks everybody in the chat. We'll see you next week with Ryan Tang. All right, guys, and we're going to just hang out here until StreamYard.